So let me start with a brief meditation, if I may. And I have one question for you all. We go until 9, theoretically. Do you mind if I go to 9:15, because we're starting a bit late? Would that be all right? That would help me a lot. So, take a moment with your eyes open or closed. And just notice what you may be carrying in with you from your day, from your week, from your lifetime. Is there anything in particular that's calling your attention to it? If so, just acknowledge that. If it's important, let it know you'll come back for it later so that you can set it aside and come back to it either at the end of the evening, tomorrow, or at the end of the weekend. And then just have a sense of welcoming yourself here. Perhaps a moment of gratitude for yourself for taking this time out from your life, for these days to be here with us. Just a moment of heartfelt gratitude. We're all standing on the shoulders of people who've come before us, teachers, friends, family. Might you just take a moment and see who might come into your mind and welcome them here so that we can take part in all of their wisdom that is in the room here. And there may be people who are supporting you to be here this weekend. Might you send them a love gift of gratitude or heartfelt kindness? Just thanks for being there to support you in being here. And take a moment, let your senses open. Tasting that might be lingering in your mouth. Smells in the nose. Color, light, form that comes in through your eyes. The felt sense of your body. Just let attention roam freely for a moment, welcoming in the sensation of the body. And let your ears open to sound. Notice how the mind wants to come in and name the sounds. Is it possible to peel off the labels and just meet pure sound as vibration before the thinking mind comes in and names? And another moment of just gratitude for no reason at all, just to feel the sense of gratitude or loving kindness. perhaps a touch of joy and well-being. A dash of equanimity and peace. So that we nourish these as we go through our time together. So let us come back together as a group, and let me welcome us all here. Thank you for taking time to be here. There's a lot of territory that I'd love to cover this weekend, and my desire is to pique your curiosity and get you excited about this work in particular, and yoga meditation in general. Tonight, what I'd like to do is give a little bit of an introduction first, and that leads into a first practice, where I want to look at the first 5, maybe the first 3 elements that comprise this practice. But I want to give you a little bit of history. So each day we're going to divide into segments where I'll talk a little bit, see if there are any questions, dialogue. Then we'll do an in-depth practice, take a break, and then dive in again. So by the time we leave on Sunday afternoon, you will have taken maybe 5, 6 practices, some very short and some longer. So you get a really good taste of the practice. But let me give a little bit of a history. In 1970, I was new to San Francisco, having come from the East Coast. I was telling Chuck an interesting story. In '66, I came out to San Francisco for a summer job, making bicycles down in Azusa, California. Huffy bicycles, if you know about Huffy. And I was invited to come up to San Francisco to visit Job Corps, which at that time, young adults were given 3 choices: jail, Army, Job Corps. So it was a wonderful facility for people in need to learn jobs that could take them into their life. So I had a wonderful tour of Job Corps, and then the friend I was with, he and I went into San Francisco and explored, and we finding ourselves on this wonderful street named Haight-Ashbury. 1966. And I thought to myself, I like this place. I'm coming back. So in 1970, when I graduated from college, I loaded up my car and just drove right straight to San Francisco and never looked back. But as a way of meeting people, I decided to take, I don't know why, a yoga class at the Integral Yoga Institute, which was the teachings of Swami Satchidananda. Little did I know that the class would be taught for 12 weeks in silence. So we came into the building in silence. The class, we all stayed in silence except for the teacher, and then we exited the building in silence. So in 12 weeks, I never met anybody. But I like to say that first evening, at the end of the yoga practice, we did some hatha yoga, a little bit of breathing, but then we were given what I now know is a rudimentary Yoga Nidra. And I had a life-changing, transformative moment. I walked out that evening feeling totally connected to myself, in harmony with the totality of the universe, a sense of alignment and harmony I would say it was rare for me to have experienced in my life. And as I was traveling home, this spontaneous vow kind of arose to understand, number one, what just happened? What was the practice that I just engaged? How can I learn more about this? And soon after, I was volunteering at a clinic because I was studying the art of psychotherapy, and I became ultimately a psychologist. And I met an extraordinary woman who would become my mentor for the next 5 years. I would end up spending anywhere between 12 and 18 hours a day with her. She had grown up in the Far East, had been educated in the teachings of yoga as a child from her mother's side, and she grew up in a Buddhist community. And she was trained by Erich Fromm in humanistic psychology, Robert Hall, who was an associate of R.D. Laing in existential phenomenological psychology, and she was well versed in yoga and Buddhism and all sorts of perspectives. So I got a very interesting education right from the beginning in 1970. We were studying the integration of psychology, yoga, spirituality, Buddhism, humanistic psychology, existentialism, and a whole host of other things. So for me, there was never a separation between spirituality and psychology. They were a unitive experience for me. And in my work with the patients that I would ultimately see, I've worked in a mental hospital using the teachings that I'll be giving you this weekend with psychotic patients, schizophrenic patients. I had a long-term private practice working with people who were severely depressed, chronic pain, all sorts of issues, and general practice as well. I've had the extraordinary privilege of presenting this work in veterans associations. Karen was talking a little bit about Washington, D.C. VA, which I'll talk about. Homeless shelters. To date, I've done about 35 research studies that I've consulted on to see how does this practice actually work. But along the way, with that first mentor, her name was Laura, I also met a Taoist master who introduced me to Taoist yoga. Stephen Chang, his great-grandfather, had been the physician to the Emperor of China. So I studied Chinese medicine with him, Taoist yoga. I actually studied and practiced acupuncture for a number of years in Chinese medicine. Took my needles to India, worked in a free clinic for a while. I also had the privilege of meeting many different teachers from around the world, because in those days, San Francisco was just a hub of activity for people traveling through. So I got to study with some greats along the way. But one of my central teachers in 1979, I met TKV Desikachar, subsequently studied with him in India, the workings of yoga therapy. And then in 1984, met who would become my real spiritual mentor, Jean Klein, who was a teacher of Advaita non-dualism, but he had also traveled to India back in the 1950s after World War II, and had actually studied with Desikachar's father, Krishnamacharya, and a host of other non-dual teachers. He also introduced me to the teachings of Kashmir non-dualism. So the teachings that I'll be working out of are a comprehensive compilation that comes out of Sankhya, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Advaitic Vedanta, the Kashmir Shaiva schools of non-dualism. But I also sat in the 70s for many years in Zen Buddhism and studied Mahayana Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism. So I have a nice background in Buddhism as well, with a number of extraordinary teachers. But I also was in the early 70s on my way to become a Christian minister. And I met a wonderful fellow, Max Pierce, a Jesuit priest, who everybody kept telling me, you got to talk to Max. So he was a teacher at the seminary in Berkeley, and he invited me for a year to hang out with him. Max was blind, legally blind, so he said, I need a driver. And every Sunday I go to a different church around California. Why don't you come with me? And so I did. And every Sunday for a year we went to a different church. Sometimes Max gave the sermon, sometimes we were just there as guests, and sometimes there were seminars. And then we would take long walks and talk about Christianity, Judaism, becoming a minister, Buddhism, yoga. You know, there was one night, 2 a.m, I woke up and there's Max doing some crazy stuff on the floor. So in the morning I said, Max, what were you doing? And he said, well, when I can't sleep, I get up and I do yoga. So it was wonderful because he knew these teachings as well. At the end of the year, though, I talked to Max and I said, you know, in the total year I've been with you, the only person I feel who is really embodied and is walking these teachings in their daily life is you. And he kind of nodded his head. And I said, thank you, Max. I think I'll go back to do my PhD in psychology. But some months later, I called him and I said, Max, you know, there's this wonderful course in comparative religion, but also this PhD in psychology, and I wanted to get your advice. And his exact words were, we've had this conversation before, haven't we? And my exact words back to Max were, thank you, Max, I just wanted to hear you say that. And I ended up going into clinical psychology. Because I realized that no matter what I did, comparative religion, my Chinese medicine, I actually got accepted into chiropractic school, medical school, and each time I realized I would still be doing what I'm doing now. So why go through those schoolings when I'm already in a school myself that is giving me what I really need? And so I subsequently went on and got my clinical degree in psychology and became a licensed psychologist and also a licensed marriage and family therapist. So that's a long story to kind of introduce a thread. What has always been interesting to me is what do all these spiritual traditions have in common? What is the singular thread that moves through them all? When I first began to really study Yoga Nidra in the early 70s, and I studied the teachings of Swami Satchidananda and Swami Satyananda from the Bihar school. And I was given by these teachings a kind of a cultural heritage from India, which I was passing on to my students because I became a yoga teacher and was teaching, and I had my own yoga school for a number of years. But it quickly became apparent to me that I was imposing a cultural teaching onto a Western audience, and it didn't feel right. I was asking people to see different images, archetypal aspects that come out of India. You know, you're asked to see an antelope in your heart, a crocodile in your pelvis, an elephant in your belly. And the good news is I could do those visualizations, but I quickly realized I never was brought up to feel that I had a crocodile in my pelvis and an elephant in my belly and an antelope in my heart. So I started asking, what are the archetypal images that come to me from my family culture, my Western culture, and my world culture? So I started asking my students, rather than imposing these kinds of things on them, I started asking them and interviewing them. When you take a moment, and try this for yourself, when you take a moment and just feel into your body, notice that there are particular sensations that are calling your attention to a particular area, say, in your physical body. And when you land there, one of the inquiries we can make is, where in particular do you find yourself in your body? What are the different sensations that are present that are calling your attention? Is there a particular feeling or emotion that's present here or somewhere else that's calling you? If a door were to suddenly open and this emotion or this sensation were to walk in the room, what image best represents it? Is it a person, a child, an animal, a plant, a mineral? Is it some formless form? When we do this, we can quickly see that we have certain archetypal images that come to us quite naturally. Different colors, different forms. So I began to really look at what are the threads, say, in this practice of Yoga Nidra, but also in Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Sufism, Buddhism. What are the central threads that these spiritual traditions have in common? The deeper I went into the yogic teachings, the deeper I read into the Upanishads, the Gitas, Patanjali, the teachings from Shankaracharya, or the yogic traditions of Advaita and Kashmir Shaivism, Yoga Nidra gave me a structure that I could hang and that I can hang any teaching on. It was like a tree with many branches, and each branch, in a way, represented different aspects of all the different teachings, but that main trunk formed that central thread or the core that I found in all the teachings that I've studied. So I hope you'll find, whether you come from a Buddhist perspective, the teachings of Trungpa, whether you come from a Christian tradition, whether you come from a Judeo or a Sufism or a Muslim, the thing that I would like you to find is that it's enlivening your own practice. I'm not here to make you Yoga Nidra practitioners. I'm here to make us deeper human beings who are anchored more deeply in our own tradition, but hopefully you'll get excited about Yoga Nidra too. What would most excite me is at the end of a practice, and I was standing at the door, and you were filing out one by one, whispering in my ear, "Thank you for making the practice just for me today." But in the room, we would have all sorts of people from different traditions, but somehow you felt the practice was made just for you. I think this is the challenge we have as teachers. How do we teach to a general group when we have so many possibilities? Somebody is here to anchor into well-being. Somebody is here to really awaken to their most essential nature. Somebody is here because they have chronic pain, somebody with PTSD, another person with depression, somebody with anxiety. One's a Jew, one's a Muslim, one's a Christian, one's a Buddhist, one's a yogi, and of course we got a smattering of atheists and Rosicrucians and one of everybody. And yet they're all saying, "Thank you for making the practice for me today." This is what we want to find if we're going into the teaching skills. How do we teach in such a way that we're really enlivening people from the inside out rather than imposing philosophies on top of them? So right off the bat, I want to say the practices that I'm teaching are not a philosophy. I'm not pushing a philosophy. There are different terms that I'd like to explore with you. But for each thing that we're offering, I want you to take it as a practice you're inquiring into. So you're not trying to take something on. You're trying to feel into it and see what's the truth within it for you. So we're not imposing a philosophy, a religion, a spiritual perspective, but we're using these as different points of inquiry. So Yoga Nidra, and I've got it on either sides of the room, there's a 10-step protocol that I'll be showcasing to you. Think of these as 10 points of inquiry for you to come to your own first-hand understanding, not second-hand information that you've read in a book, but from the inside out. This 10-step map is embedded in a larger 38-step map. And I noticed in your handout that map was not included, so tomorrow I'm going to hand you that map. It's a 38-stage map of meditation that I'll explain a little bit more tomorrow, that incorporates the teachings of Sankhya, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Advaita Vedanta, and the full teachings of unqualified non-dualism that come out of the Kashmir tradition of Shaivism. There are northern and southern branches in India of Shaivism. I'm of the northern branch that traces its lineage back to a fellow by the name of Abhinavagupta, his lineage carrying through into the modern times with Lakshman Ju, his handoff to Western students and others with which I've had the pleasure of studying with. This map gives us a comprehensive path of meditation that you will come to see, I hope, forms also the comprehensive path of Buddhism, Christianity, and all the other different paths of spirituality. Let me give a little bit of then background to the practice itself. Originally, it's called Yoga Nidra. And yoga and this practice that has come to be called iRest, in 2004, I got a call from a friend who is now close associate, Robin Carnes, who had been delivering a yoga class at Walter Reed Army Medical Center as part of Dean Ornish's cardiac care process. And that day when she went to teach as a guest teacher, she had hurt her back and she asked the instructor, might I teach Yoga Nidra rather than a Hatha yoga class? And the teacher said, yoga's yoga, do whatever you want. During the class, though, there was a head researcher from Walter Reed sitting in that day just spontaneously to see what the program was like. And she asked Robin afterwards, would she be interested in engaging in a research project because she saw the possibility. So I got a call from Robin. She said, you don't know me from anybody. I've been reading your books, studying your teachings, listening to your CDs. I'd like to do a study on Yoga Nidra. Would you be interested in training me? And I said, sure, come to California. And she said, well, actually, can you come to Washington, D.C.? And I said, I can't come and you don't want to come here, so let's do it on the phone. So I spent 2 years training Robin and another woman in the art of delivering this practice. When I first came to Walter Reed, they said, we're Marines. We're Army, Navy. We don't do yoga. Yoga is for sissies. And I have a beautiful video on our website of this very wonderful Marine saying, yoga is for sissies. We're Marines. We don't do yoga. So they asked me to call it something else. So I came up with the name Integrative Restoration. Integrated because I think the practice integrates us as a whole human being, gives us the owner manuals that I never got as a child, so that we can be operating on all 12 cylinders, friendly terms with our body, our mind, our emotions, and in our relationships. So we become an integrated human being. Restoration, because I think it restores us to our innate underlying sense of the mystery that has given birth to the entire cosmos and to each one of us. It restores us to our essential nature, where we feel interconnected both within ourselves and the entire universe. Back in 2004, everything was iPad and iPhone, so why not iRest? Integrative, the I is a very small I. It's helping the ego find its proper functioning, and rest for restoration. And they said, we're great. We're Marines. We can do integrative restoration. So after the study was complete, we were a couple of years in, I get a call from Chuck, who's the head psychiatrist, and he says, you know, we like what you're doing. You can call it anything you want. So we call it Integrative Restoration iRest Yoga Nidra Meditation. Why? And this is, I think, very important for language. I can go into a homeless shelter, which I've done, a chemical dependency unit with men or women, a veterans association, a hospital, a clinic. I teach integrative restoration. If I go into a place with a bunch of vets and I say, I'm going to teach you yoga, they're going to toss me out of the room. But if I teach integrative restoration, they're going, what's that? When I go to a Naropa or to a yoga center, I can teach Yoga Nidra. And if I go to a strictly Buddhist center like Spirit Rock in California, I teach meditation. But ultimately, I'm teaching Yoga Nidra meditation. So I think the languaging is really important so people pull us in. And I love sitting on a plane. And if you've ever had this experience, somebody turns to you on a plane and they say, "So what do you do?" And I know if I say, "I teach yoga," the first thing they're going to say to me is, "I need to get some more exercise myself." If I say, "I teach meditation," they'll say, "I need to relax more myself." If I say, "I teach Yoga Nidra," they go, "What's that?" And if I say I teach a practice called integrative restoration, they're even more interested. What's that? It gives me a portal to open into a lot of conversations where if I say I teach yoga or meditation, I'm all of a sudden in a box. And it's hard to get out of that box. So I'm teaching you integrative restoration, iRest, Yoga Nidra meditation. The beauty of it is it's a full comprehensive path of awakening to our complete integration, interconnectedness in harmony with the totality of the universe, where we find our sense of value, purpose, and meaning in just being. Our doing is then secondary. So it is a full comprehensive path of awakening, enlightenment. But it's also a secular form that many people receive to heal through their PTSD, their chronic pain. We've done studies with cancer, multiple sclerosis, sleep studies, Columbia University. We've worked with depression, anxiety, well-being. And most people I find that come to these kinds of classes, after so many weeks of engagement, they'll come up to me and they'll say, "Thanks, Doc, I got what I needed. I feel so much better, my chronic pain, my PTSD, I'll see you in the marketplace." Then every once in a while, they'll come back a few years later and they'll say, "There's something else here, isn't there?" And I say, "Yeah, it's in the back room. Come on back." And I'll get into the deeper teachings. So my challenge with you is I want to expose you to the full breadth this weekend so you can see the comprehensiveness of the practice. So I think of it as a secular, modern adaptation of a very ancient practice that comes out of the yoga tradition. And from my perspective, Buddha was a yogi. And his teachings were a beautiful modern day rendition of the very ancient teachings. And we see that about every few hundred years, a new person comes forward revitalizing the teachings. Shankaracharya came in about 500, the Buddha, Patanjali. These were revitalizers when the teachings have kind of stalled a bit. And I said that I want to define yoga as our embodied, somatic, felt sense of our interconnectedness with the entire universe, where we don't feel separate. In this embodiment, this awakening, when I look at another, my 5 senses and mind are designed to see a sense of another human being that's separate from me. That's the work of the 5 senses in the mind, isn't it? It's their job, genetically engineered into us to create a sense of separation. The 5 senses working in harmony with the mind and this I function and the ego function. It creates a sense of self and other. The practices help us awaken to what I call the 7th sense that knows no sense of separation. So when I look out at another, while I see someone else that has the appearance of a man or a woman or someone with more hair, that's a joke, I see the body form. But to me, I'm meeting something that we both share in common, a sense of being, and the mystery that has given birth to both of us. And I want you to see if we can touch that, have a glimpse, So we can really feel the awakening of this seventh sense, which we had when we were children, and we've been encultured often out of it. And so it's a way, we might think of Yoga Nidra as a way of the process of remembering. It's recognition. It's not bringing something new to us. It is enlivening something that's already here and bringing it out fully. So I think of yoga, a term that means to me, we have embodied that understanding, that awakening. Is it okay if I quote a few sutras along the way, because it's a yoga group in some way? I get the nod from the head man over there. So the second sutras of Patanjali says, Yogash Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogash, yoga, Chitta Vritti, the fluctuations of the mind, the movements of the mind, Nirodha. Now, Nirodha is an interesting word. It's often translated as a verb, to still or stop. So the sutra means yoga happens when the modifications of the mind have stopped and we realize our inherent underlying essence or our essential nature. That otherwise we get involved in the mind and we don't recognize that essential nature. So it seems like yoga happens when the thoughts are stopped or stilled. That's the word Nirodha. But Nirodha can also be a noun. It can mean stillness. So look at this sutra in a different way. Yoga is when we know ourselves as that innate stillness, our essential nature, whether the mind is stopped or in movement. Because if yoga is predicated on you stopping your mind, you're only going to be in yoga for milliseconds. Because that sucker is designed to think. The thinking mind, as we'll see as we explore, is designed to think, but it doesn't need a thinker. And Yoga Nidra is about awakening to this underlying stillness. Nidra is a word in Sanskrit that means sleep, but think of it as a changing state of consciousness. So it could be sleep, hypnagogia, theta, delta, REM, the different aspects that we find in sleep, REM, dreaming or dreamless sleep. But it could also mean a changing state of consciousness, anger, sadness, happiness, joy, well-being. Something that has birth, growth, stability, decay, and death. So in the Yoga Sutras, we have the wonderful word parinama, which means everything that changes, and another word prakriti, which means all of nature that is born and dies. So we think of a thought, an emotion, a body sensation. What, don't they? They have birth, growth, stability for a while, decay, and they change and die. So that's the changing. So Yoga Nidra is about navigating the changing states of consciousness that no matter what is present that is changing, so you could be sad, happy, in deep grief, in grief longing, joyful and happy, equanimous, peaceful, totally agitated and disturbed. But Yoga Nidra means you still are in touch with that underlying essence of unchanging equanimity that's unshakable. We want to mine from within ourselves an unshakable aspect that can't be hurt, harmed, doesn't need fixing or changing, is perfect just as it is, and there is our anchor from which we meet the world. Otherwise, we're constantly battling with the changing fluctuations of mind, emotions, body. So think of the practice of Yoga Nidra as learning how to navigate the different states of consciousness and coming upon this that doesn't change and gives us the foundation from which to meet the changing. And I think of these practices actually deceptively simple. easily understood and brought into our life, but they take time. While we can have glimpses very quickly, and we can get a grasp of these different tools, it does take days, weeks, months, years, decades to fully embody them into every activity, relationship that we have and will navigate in our life. So, this sense of integrating our body, our senses, our mind, this sense of restorative to this underlying essence, which I will call a sense of unshakable well-being, indestructible, which is what we're going to examine tonight in the practice, and that I think of these as tools of life, the owner's manual that we didn't get, that are helping us understand how to be self-regulative, how to self-care, self-soothe, no matter what is going on in the rest of our life. So just to let you know, this is a research-driven protocol. Some of you may know I'm the co-founder of the International Association of Yoga Therapy. Back in the 60s and 70s, I realized that yoga was not going to move forward in the Western world unless it was research-driven. So I helped co-found the organization, and I was the founding editor of the journal where I was bringing in medical research so that yoga teachers could gain access to research from around the world. So along the way, we've done research on PTSD, anxiety, depression, chronic pain. Karen was one of the teachers in the chronic pain study at Washington, D.C. VA. We've done work with TBI, again at Washington, D.C. VA, Walter Reed Army Medical Center, Brooke Army Medical Center, the Miami VA, and the Chicago VA, along with a number of hospitals. We've been working with resiliency in military couples. When one or both of a military couple are deployed, the divorce rate skyrockets to 70% or more because of the stress that they undergo. So we looked at iRest as a form of resiliency in military couples. Could they regain their sense of joy and happiness? And that research has been done, and we're about to publish the results on that. And I'm happy to say, yes, we can help a couple regain their sense of joy and marital satisfaction. Sleep. Sleep is one of the biggest healing forces. I hope I have a little bit of time to dive into it. iRest, you're learning not just to navigate the changing states of waking consciousness, but the sleeping states of consciousness. It's the only meditation where you're actually asked to go to sleep. Why? Initially, we'll be asking you to stay alert, but eventually to learn how to navigate states of dream and dreamlessness and yet be wide awake. So that you're able to see that the sleeping states of consciousness are no different than the waking states of consciousness. They're just changing states of consciousness that are superimposed upon a deeper layer of unchangingness. So that while we're awake or asleep, we are that changeless, awake to the phenomena that are going on. So you could call Yoga Nidra as a form of lucid meditation. Lucidity when you're dreaming and lucidity when you're awake. We did studies with compassion care fatigue. I did a study at Brooke Army Medical Center. If you want to know vicarious PTSD, work in an amputee ward or a burn unit. They have the largest burn unit perhaps in the United States. People are flown in from all over the world, not just military people. The people we worked with were the care workers who had lost their joy, vicarious PTSD, and a sense of not wanting to go to work and not sleeping at night because of their PTSD. At the end of our study, they told us they had recaptured their joy, their sense of purpose, they were sleeping through the night, and they were looking forward to going back to work. And we're doing a study right now with elders in California with IONS, the Institute for Noetic Sciences, looking at what are the three main problems with elders? Depression, sleep, pain. And you can throw in anxiety and a whole bunch of other things. So we're doing a study, and we've gotten really good results with elders. We're also in hospice and a number of other places, and looking at how do we work with people going through cancer treatment, helping them keep a sense of stability while they're going through their treatment, and with multiple sclerosis, where we can help them recover a sense of esteem and purpose and value in spite of the deficits that they're undergoing. I put the black up there. I'm not interested in you knowing all these different things, although I can send you this PDF if you're interested. All these slides are available to you if you'd like to have them. So we're working in many different units. One of the places that I'm really interested right now, I'm doing a study at a children's hospital clinic in Las Vegas. They treat 125 children a week who have cancer. And we're doing iRest first with the staff to educate them so that they can recover their wellness. Then we'll be working with the families to help them navigate the difficulties as their children as young as 1 month old are going through cancer treatment. And then we're working with the children themselves to help them, give them the skills with which to navigate cancer. And we're doing that as a research project so that we can really see how it works. Because don't we want to know, who does it work with? What kinds of issues? And who doesn't it work with? And I like to call this good news and bad news for us. The good news is, to date, in all of our 35 studies, we've gotten excellent trend lines in all the directions we want them. The bad news is we don't have enough teachers out there who want to go out and do this work because it's being called for. So if you're at all interested, we do have this training program to move into learning how to bring this into whatever operation you're in, whether it's in an educational school, a university, a clinic, or a meditation center. So you can see lots of benefits, both positive in the trend lines where we want to see a decrease, and trend line where we want to see an increase across a lot of different measures in all the different studies we've been doing. Again, these slides are available to you, so I'm going to move through them in a way. So just to let you know, in 2010, the U.S. Army Surgeon General and the Defense Centers of Excellence earmarked Yoga Nidra based on our research as a tier 1 for working with chronic pain and worthy of continuing research with PTSD. And every wounded warrior up until this moment, if they're going through their Walter Reed Army Medical Center healing program, has access to our program as part of their regimen. And I'll never forget, I came to the Health Deployment Clinic Center a few years after this program had been installed at Walter Reed. And I'm walking down the hallway, and this bulldog of a master sergeant, 6.5 or more feet tall, huge man, he's coming walking towards me, and he's pointing his finger at me, and he's shouting at me, "I don't like people like you," and I'll use the F word, effing with my boys and my girls. "But I like what you're doing, so you're welcome here." I remember going, oh. I figured I got the stamp of good housekeeping from this guy. So we do a lot of work with military, but a lot of work with hospitals and clinics all over the world now because we're in Australia. The Australian Army is interested in us. I was just up in Edmonton. They're interested in installing it as a wellness program with the military. We're coming into prisons in England. So we're worldwide, coming into Germany and all different countries. I want to give you a little background on the neuroscience. Think of iRest as a neuro training regimen for your brain. And I want to go into some of the research that has been done on neuroscience tomorrow to give you a sense of what's going on in your brain and your nervous system when you're on Yoga Nidra and in meditation in general. And we're looking at changing your brain. We know from the research we can grow your hippocampus, we can shrink your amygdala, we can grow and thicken the neocortex of your brain, and a host of other structures, which I'd like to go into tomorrow and Sunday. And this sense of fostering self-regulation skills and self-care skills. So I want to look at these. Tonight is just a quick overview. And I'm going to flash through these and I'm going to go do these tomorrow because I want to get to the first part of the practice. So think of Yoga Nidra, the way that I'm teaching it, as comprised of 10 steps. And I want to call out the first 3 steps, then we're going to take a break, and then I want to do a Yoga Nidra with you that brings you into these 3 first elements. I want you to think of these 10 steps as a holistic model. We have to teach them linearly, but you can mix and match them or do only one and integrate them in different ways into your life. So think of them as they all appeared simultaneously, but we can take them one by one in a linear kind of way as tools for self-wellness. So the first 3 tools, and here's a way that iRest differs from other traditions of Yoga Nidra. 1, we're not imposing a philosophy. So in many traditions like the Satyananda Bihar school, you are told to see certain images, you're told to see certain colors, certain sounds, you're taken on journeys that the teacher gives to you. I'll take you on a journey, but I'm going to do it in such a way that it's your journey I'm taking you on. You're going to give me the journey that you want me to take you on, which is really delightful as a teacher because then I don't have to think, what do you need? You're going to tell me what you need and I'm going to simply give it back to you. And then you're paying me money to do that. It's quite a wonderful way of being a teacher. You tell me what to do, I do it to you, and you thank me. That's quite extraordinary. So when I learned the practice, there was this thing called sankalpa. Sankalpa means a vow. San, S-A-N, means born from your heart. Something that comes from underneath, from that innate mystery, and informs your mind of an action that you need to take into the world. And the word kalpa means time, something that unfolds over time. So sankalpa is a deep vow or intention that's given to you that unfolds as an action in your life over time. But I thought it needs more than that. So I divided the sankalpa into 3 parts, not just the vow. The first is what I call the heartfelt mission. When I taught this in the early 70s, I called it the heartfelt prayer. But back then I had a whole bunch of recovering Catholics in my classes, and they did not like the word prayer. So I renamed it heartfelt desire. When we started teaching to the military, they said, what's this desire business? So in interviewing them, I asked them, what would you call it? And they say, we're military, we do mission. So think of this as the mission that life has sent you on this lifetime, that it's asking you to live, that when you live it, you feel in harmony with the totality of the universe. The word that some of you know is the Sanskrit word dharma. Dharma means the work that we are given by life itself to carry out into the world. The root of the word dharma comes from a beautiful word, rutta, R-T-A, rutta. Rutta means to be living in such a manner that you feel yourself in harmony with the totality of the universe. So when we truly live our dharma, we feel a sense of value, purpose, and meaning in just being and carrying it out into work we may do in the world. But we know that our work can change over lifetime, but this underlying heartfelt mission, that stays in place. There's a beautiful word in Sanskrit, so the dharma, rutta, think of it as the universal life force that's animating every atom, molecule, and cell in your body, that's giving you life, that's giving the planets, the cosmos life as well. And we want to think of this as energizing every cell in your body. So when I start the practice, I'm going to ask you to feel the life force that's animating your physical body as a body of vibration. There's a beautiful Sanskrit text, the Spanda Karika. It's the doctrine of vibration. The body is understood to be a body of vibration that's vibrating so quickly that it's going out and blinking in, blinking out, blinking in. But it happens so fast, it feels like there's a continuity to our life. But in fact, our cells, aren't they, and our atoms and electrons and protons and quarks, they're blinking in and out, but so quickly that it gives a sense of continuity to us. When you really get in touch with your heartfelt desire, it gives you a sense of value, meaning, and purpose. So think of it this way. It's years from now. You're on your deathbed, surrounded by your most cherished and intimate friends. And you're telling them how you lived your life out of this incredible vow that you came upon. And they're sharing with you how they actually saw you living your life. You know, the old joke, if you really want to know about somebody, ask their spouse, ask their friends. But what they're saying to you about how they saw you living your life is the same thing you're reflecting to them, how you saw you living your own life. And I don't think, at least for me, I'm going to be sitting there saying to my friends, I wished that I had worked more. I think what I'd like to be saying to them is, I was a kind, loving, caring human being that felt connected deeply with life and the people that I met, and I felt my place in the universe. To me, that's a heartfelt quality of feeling tone. So I want you to think, if you were on your deathbed years from now, what would you like to be saying to the people who are your most cherished friends and intimate acquaintances? What are the words you would like to use to describe what was the mission that life sent you on? Not just the work that you accomplished. You know, it'd be nice if I could say, yeah, I affected many people through Yoga Nidra. But really, to me, the deepest treasure that I find is love. And how do I move that in my daily life, moment to moment, so that I keep a sense of connectedness with the people that I'm working with, or my spouse and my friends, so I don't go into separation. I keep that sense of non-separateness. So this is the first real deep aspect that we're mining in Yoga Nidra. We start with it and we end with it in each practice, and we carry it into our daily life. The next is what I call intention. Intention are the vows, both small and large, that you enact on a daily basis that are helping you realize and manifest your heartfelt desire. So, what are kind of vows? I'm struggling in my life with anger. So I want to meet anger in my Yoga Nidra practice and really befriend it and understand it as a messenger that's actually helping me on my way, rather than an adversary I'm trying to get rid of. We'll go deeply into that. Or, you know, I'm having grief that I'm working with, or sadness, or I'm having a hard time getting to sleep. Or I truly want to know the deepest aspect of it is to be a human being, to be fully awake. As we all know, when Buddha was asked as he was walking along, "Who are you?" And his answer was, "I'm awake." So what does that really mean to be a truly awake human being? So that might be an intention that you have, to really truly wake up in this lifetime. But it could be as simple as, I eat for energy. I'm a non-smoker. I live my life in the middle way, not too much this way, not too much that way. So I want you to discover what are intentions that you will carry into a particular practice of meditation or Yoga Nidra. And it might be as simple as I want to stay awake throughout the whole process and not fall into unconscious sleep, which we'll talk about how to do that. Or it could be to work with a particular emotion or belief you're struggling with. Could be to work with pain. Many different issues we can work with. Or to navigate and feel this underlying unchanging no matter what else is arising in your practice. So think of these intentions as things that you're manifesting, unbreakable vows. Because there's an important piece here. When you make a vow with yourself, and you break it, you're cultivating self-hatred. When we make a vow, we want to make it in such a way that we know there is no way we're going to break it. And I'll talk a little bit about how to do that tomorrow. But it's very important when we make a vow to ourselves that we do it in such a way we build on successes, not on failures. This is very important. So our vows initially need to be very small and very short term, so that we can build on a success into longer term vows. You know, one of my first vows back in the 70s when I was exploring this was, I'm not going to eat sugar. So what was my first vow? For the next 60 seconds, I'm not going to eat sugar. I accomplished that, and so I started building on success. Now it's 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then an hour, then a day, then a week, then a month, finally a year. And if we do it slowly, the mind goes along with us. If we try to make too big a gulp at first, the mind rebels, we break it, and we cultivate a sense of self-hatred. The third is the inner resource. The inner resource is a place within yourself of unbreakable well-being, indestructible well-being. So that no matter what you're experiencing internally, externally, no matter what the circumstance, the situation, or the person you're with, you have this ground of unshakable, unbreakable well-being with which you're meeting the circumstance. So you could be on North Carolina right now in the midst of the worst hurricane, with your body reacting with anxiety or fear, and yet there's an unshakable ground of well-being with which you're meeting that body's response. Or somebody close to you has recently died, and you're meeting that grief from that unshakable ground of well-being. So I want to go into this with you after the break and begin to work with it and establish it into this first practice, and then we'll carry this with us and nourish it through every practice and into our daily life. So this inner resource is ultimately an innate sense of being. Actually, being is a portal to another deeper sense, which is a portal to an even deeper sense. So I think of being as our first portal or our first anchor into unshakable, indestructible well-being, that later on we're going to see that is a handoff to an even deeper level of well-being, and that is a handoff to something else, which I call the mystery, the ineffableness that has given birth to all of us. There are many ways of referring to it. I want you to come to your own way of talking about it, so I'll do a little bit of interviewing you after the break. Because again, I don't want to say this is well-being. For you, it might be a sense of peace or ease or spaciousness or openness or some other word, refuge. You find your own word and your own way of describing it so that it's yours. But if we were to share experiences, we'd be realizing we're talking about the same thing. So let's take a 15-minute bathroom break. It's not really a social break, although I'm sure you'll be talking with one another. But I'll bring the bell in 10 minutes to call you back, so in 15 minutes we're back in place. And we're going to take this into a practice. So if you want to set up where during the Yoga Nidra, you have your choice. You can lie down on the ground on your back, and if you want to bring mats tomorrow, great, or use these mats and a pillow. Or you can lie on your right side, left side, or on your stomach. But sometimes I want you to be sitting on the ground, sometimes sitting on a chair, sometimes standing up. And because we have a wonderful room, sometimes, some of you, I'd like you to be walking around the room as we're doing the practice. Why? Because I want you to integrate it into every possible body position you could ever find yourself in. If you can anchor this unshakable well-being into every posture, so we teach a form of Hatha Yoga where we integrate it. We won't be doing it this weekend unless I get up, maybe I may get a little time, but if you're doing a side bend, a back bend, a forward bend, a twist, if you're upside down, life is going to twist us into all sorts of positions. So if you've anchored your unshakable ground of being and well-being into every possible body position, emotion, belief, cognitive aspect that you could ever imagine, then later on when you meet that circumstance and your body is twisted into some weird shape by life, it'll evoke that sense of well-being. Otherwise, the pose that you find yourself in life, whether it's a body position or grief or sadness, you'll get distracted by it and you won't recognize this unshakable ground. So we're really trying to embed it into every possible position you'll find yourself in life. So for tonight's practice, you might find yourself just sitting up because we have delicious mats and sofas or chairs, but you can lie down on the floor. It's a little bit late at night, so there's a tendency to kind of go to sleep. But that said, Yoga Nidra is about learning how to navigate sleep, and we'll talk about that later. So take a 15-minute break. I'll ring the bell in 10 minutes to call you back. So find a comfortable position. I'm going to do a little bit of inquiry with you and then take you in to a short Yoga Nidra. And this is a bit of an interactive inquiry. So what I'd like to do is ask you 6 questions, but it's based on one premise, which I need to ask you from the very beginning. Let's keep the lights up just a little bit for the moment. Thank you. Is there anybody in the room who's unfamiliar? If I were to say, can you take a moment and just be? I know it's kind of hard. We're not used to it. But is there anybody who's unfamiliar with just being? It's like, you've done your chores, you're not ready to do the next set of chores, and you just sit back in a chair, maybe with a cool one, and you're just taking a momentary time out from thinking, from doing, and you're just being. So I'd like you to settle back for a moment. I'll open a little meditation for you, and then I'm going to ask you 6 questions. So with your eyes open or closed, let your 5 senses open. You might bring your attention to the jaw, welcoming the sensations of the jaw. All the sensations inside the mouth, floor, walls, roof, back of the throat, tongue, and the taste that might be lingering in the mouth. So the mouth is open to taste. Welcome the touch of sensation as air enters and leaves the nostrils. The nostrils open to smelling. Bring attention into the eyes, all around and back behind the eyes. The eyes as sensation. And whether the eyes are closed or open, notice colors, darknesses, form. The eyes to seeing. Bring attention deep inside the ears. Explore the sensation along the inner corridors and canals of the ears. Opening to sensation. So the ears feel wide open to sound and vibration. Let attention wander through the physical body, noting different sensations from crown to fingers to toes. Welcome the body as sensation. You might feel the throb or the pulse of the body, the life force that's animating every atom, molecule, and cell. Notice the thinking mind. Can you set it free to just think? Notice how the thinking mind just is spontaneously producing thoughts. But it doesn't need a thinker. Set the mind free like you do with any other sensory modality, tasting, smelling, hearing, seeing. And let your attention drop out of your thinking mind like riding an elevator down. Feel the sensation as you move down through the throat and neck, down into the sensation in the chest. Welcome heartfelt sensation in the mid-chest, heartfelt region. All the way down into the belly. Feel the natural sensations in the pelvis, legs, feet. And feel the natural heaviness or weight or lightness of the arms. Welcome the sensation in the palms of the hands. Welcome the entire body as a field of sensations. Feeling the entire body at the same time, front and back, left and right sides. sensation deep inside the body and on the surface. Take a moment, a few moments, just welcoming the body as sensation. And invite in this delightful sense of simply being. And notice when you're simply being, how it evokes different qualities of feeling tones in the body. And much like finding yourself as you would in a bathtub, where in the initial movement of settling into a bathtub, it feels like you're in the water. But if the water's the right temperature, after a while, you become the water. Can you do this with being? At first, it feels like you're in being. But let yourself dissolve into being so you become this sense of being. Not thinking about it with your mind, not trying to perceive it from your eyes visually, but feel yourself dissolving into the real deep somatic felt sense before thought names it. And this first question, this first inquiry, from being, as being, answer this question from yourself as being. Where's your location? Where's your innermost core? And where is your outermost boundary, border, or periphery? Explore being for a moment. Explore yourself as being. Where is your innermost location? Where is your outermost border or periphery? If it feels right, just notice how being has both a localized presence about it in the body. You might feel it in the belly or the heart or other areas of the body. But it has a localized, somatic, felt sense about you as being. So feel that for a moment, that localized, felt sense of being. Where and how you experience it in the body. Then go out, and where is the outermost border or boundary of being? Can you feel how it's more field-like? Where the borders and boundaries dictated by the skin may dissolve, and you feel this more field-like quality to being. So take a few moments and nourish, perhaps first bringing yourself into the more local feeling of being, and then let yourself explore way out in all directions, front, back, sides, below, above. How being, in a way, is everywhere. So first, consolidate more in the body, then go out and feel your field-like essence of being. At some point, can you allow both to be present, both the localized presence of being and its more non-local field-like aspect? The second inquiry, as being, answering this question from being, do you as being lack for anything? Is there anything that by acquiring it would make you as being any more perfect than you already are? Can you feel how being, in a manner of speaking, is beyond lack, need, want, beyond desire? The body needs food, shelter, clothing. The body has desires. The body feels sensations of lack or fullness. But go into being and really inquire, does being feel any sense of lack? Does being desire for anything? Or is it okay just as it is, just as you are as being? The third inquiry, is being unfamiliar or is it familiar? Go back in time, imagining you're 20, 15, 12, 5, 1. Can you sense how being has always been a presence, at times pushed way back into the background, forgotten even? But can you nourish being now into the foreground of your experiencing and really taste and feel the familiarity of it, the sameness of it that's always recognizable? But at the same time, can you feel how being has a freshness about it? It's always brand new, yet always familiar and the same. The fourth inquiry, as you're really settling into being, notice what's happening to the thinking mind. The more you dissolve into being. Can you notice how there's a shift out of the thinking mind more into the heart or the belly or into your non-local presence, and how the thinking mind may begin to slow down, even subside at times? And as you immerse yourself in being, how you step into your timelessness. You step out of time, out of the past, out of the future, even out of this present moment, which is a thought. Step into your timelessness for a moment as you dissolve even more deeply as being. This fifth inquiry: does being need special circumstance to be present? Or could you imagine yourself walking around, having a conversation, eating, working, resting, and still the felt sense of being is here, accompanying whatever circumstance you may find yourself in? So explore your body for a moment. Notice, is there a particular emotion that's present right now, a particular feeling in the body? Notice if there is, where and how you experience it in your body. Then can you feel that felt sense of being, how it can pervade the emotion or the feeling tone that's present? Where you might momentarily give your undivided attention to the sensation, the emotion, the feeling. Then give your undivided attention to being, and go back and forth several times at your own. First one, then the other. And then can you welcome them both at the same time, and how being pervades the emotion, the sensation, the feeling. And the last inquiry: what words would you use to describe your felt sense of being? Words like presence, or love, openness. But just take a few moments now and explore, feel into being before you go into thinking, then allow a narrative to arise, a description of being, then go back into being, and just move back and forth between feeling it somatically and taking a moment to find words within that adequately may describe how you would describe the felt sense of being to someone else. Take a few moments now. Then again, let go of the narrative. We can come back to it in a little bit. But now put your undivided attention into nourishing and feeding this somatic felt sense of being. If something momentarily takes your attention away, like a sound, a thought, a feeling tone, note it, don't dismiss it, but keep the thought or the sound and weave in the felt sense of being amidst the distraction or this which is calling your attention. Can you feel all the way down into the toes and feet, ankles, legs? Not looking down at your legs, but feeling yourself having descended like an elevator into your legs or feet, feeling from your legs and your feet, interweaving the felt sense of being, every cell, permeated with the felt sense of being throughout the feet, legs, pelvis. Bring attention into the torso, welcoming all the sensations of the torso, but interweaving the felt sense of being in and amidst and through the entire torso. Feel your way into the arms and hands and welcome in the felt sense of being amidst the cells and tissues. Come into the neck, head, and face, and weave in the felt sense of being in amidst all the tissues of the neck, head, face. Again, welcome the felt sense of being now throughout the entire body as a field of being. Feel out in front and saturate the entire room out in front of you with the felt sense of being. Go back behind the body. Feel the body moving out in front of you, and you feel yourself behind the body as a delicious, viscous, felt sense of being. Go out to one side of the body, left or right. Permeate the room to the side of the body with the felt sense of being. Move all the way across the body into the opposite side of the room, saturating it with this eminence and radiance of being. Go down below the body. Leave the body up above you. Go down. Feel yourself descending way down into the space below the body. Feel the radiance of being here as well. Then let yourself be drawn all the way up above the body, leaving the body below, and feel the space above the body permeated with being. Then feel all these different spacious directions at once, below, above, right and left, front and back, deep inside the body, and all around. Let the body completely dissolve into being. Then stay with the felt sense of being and let your eyes gently open. Let color and light and form flood in, and yet saturated with the felt sense of being everywhere, out in front, behind, left and right. And then several times on your own, let your eyes close. Nourish, enliven this felt sense of being, and then let your eyes open again, several times, closing, opening, nourishing the felt sense of being. And when it feels right, let your eyes come back, eyes open, state of consciousness, wide awake. And again, feel the body as a field of sensation, any emotions, feeling tones that are present. The felt sense of being, sounds, perceptions, unfolding within this vast openness of being. Thoughts arising within this field of being. Then let me invite us back for the last couple of minutes of being together for this evening. And in interviewing you, what words might you describe? Where is the felt sense of being? How would you describe your location as being? What words would you sing out, if you would? Just shout it out and I'll echo it back to everybody. Here, so a sense of here-ness. Everywhere. So feeling like it's unlocalized and everywhere. Boundless. Formless. And yet, can you feel how it's also viscous? It's got a quality, a tangibility about it, and yet it's formless and empty at the same time. Full of itself, yet empty. Light. That which gives rise. In the first study I did in a homeless shelter, I asked a woman reported, who had never meditated a day in her life. She said, I feel like I'm everywhere and nowhere specific, yet an undeniable presence. I thought that was a beautiful description. So that's the first inquiry. The second one really has to do with time. What happens to your thinking mind the more you dissolve into being? And if you're really being, you cannot answer that question. Because can you see how the thinking mind begins to just slow down? And you step out of time. Because the thinking mind creates the sense of time. When we're just being, we go into our timelessness. The third inquiry was about the sense of lack. Can you feel how being doesn't need anything? It's fine just the way it is. It has no sense of lack. When I was sitting in Zen, we would chant, as I'm sure some of you did, desires are inexhaustible. I vow to bring an end to them. It occurred to me, how am I going to bring an end to desires if I'm desiring to bring an end to desires? Until I hooked into being and I realized being is outside of desire. When we find our sense of being, we leave desire and lack behind. One of the core beliefs that most people carry is at some level inside, we feel that we're a fake, that we really aren't believable. Something's not truly real here. When we go into being, we go beyond lack and fakeness. We feel our fullness. The fourth inquiry has to do with familiarity. Can you see or feel how being has always been with you? Maybe forgotten, but has never left you. And so we spend time nourishing it as an inner resource. That way we don't need a book or a teacher. You are your own book and your own teacher of being. The fifth inquiry has to do with circumstance. Does being need a special circumstance, or can you feel and sense how you could be chewing gum, walking, having a conversation? You could actually be in deep sleep. The body could be in deep delta or theta, and theta and delta, and you could still be immersed in the field of being, awake to itself. And the sixth inquiry is a word you would use to describe being. So what is your word for being? What one word or two words would you use to describe being? Awareness of awareness. Light. Serenity. Knowing. Surrender. What I would like you to do is ponder this and write these words down. Anchor into them. Because I'd like to use a word, unshakable, unchangeable well-being. Because I've tested out being. I've taken it for a test drive like you would a car. I've test driven it when I've been sad and grieving. When my parents died, I grieved it with being in place. When I had chronic pain so severe I had to be hospitalized, being was there as an unshakable ground with which I could meet the pain. I've tested it under all different conditions, when the body is reacting and when it's calm and quiet. Being is still there. It's independent, I have found, of my circumstance. It doesn't need a doer. It is beyond a doer. It is the gift that we have been given as our birthright. So part of Yoga Nidra is anchoring into it and nourishing it and then weaving it into everything else. If we do that enough, then later on when you find yourself in anger or grief or sadness or depression, or you find yourself happy and giddy or manic, being is there as the underlying essence that is helping you meet and be responsively reflective rather than reactively to the presence of whatever emotion is there. So I'd like to give you a homework. This is a workshop, so you got to have work. So tonight, you're lying in bed, you've turned out the lights, you've said your goodnights, and you're saying there, aren't you? You don't know how to fall asleep. Does anybody in the room know how to fall asleep? I don't. I lie there and I say, I'm ready. But you know, if you get too much into I'm ready, you stay awake. So there's a moment of you're just falling back, you're ready. So at that moment, right before, what I'd love you to do is nourish the ground of being. You can even take yourself through these 6 inquiries. I feel my sense of everywherenessness, my timeless perfection that's familiar, always fresh and brand new, that is independent of sleep or wakefulness, that feels like a deep quality of well-being and peace. And I feel that. Now take that into sleep. Let the body fall asleep in being, and if you should awaken in the middle of the night, before you move a muscle to go up and pee, or do whatever you need to do, Anchor back into being. Now, as you get up, stay in being, go pee in being, and come back and let the body go back into sleep in being. And in the morning, before you move a muscle, let that feeling of being flood in, resting in it, and then let it be the force that moves you into your day. So that's your homework. Simple, easy. Let's see how many of you remember, because really it's about remembering, isn't it? And so the adage is, what are you most interested in? Because it is what you're most interested in that will take your attention. For me, I'm interested in being. So a thought momentarily takes me into it, but then that sense of being floods in, and that thought is unfolding in that essence of being. So just notice, what are you most interested in? Can you become really interested in being and give your undivided attention to it as you're falling asleep, as you're waking up, and as we go through the next 2 days? So thank you for this evening. I'll be here for a few minutes if you have a question or a reflection. Otherwise, we'll see you at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to start sharp at 9. I want to respect our time. So I hope you'll all be here a little bit early, settle in, so we can ring the bell at 9 and get right into the practice. Thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow.